Today you'll be with me in paradise. These are the words of Jesus as he hung on the cross. Jesus Christ, King of the universe, the eternal Word who existed before all else, who humbled himself to come down and take on our human form, take on our human sinfulness to redeem us to the Father. And as he's doing that, as he's dying on the cross with his arms outstretched, the rulers of this world are mocking him. The Jews who are in authority, the Romans who are the authority over Jerusalem at that time, they're mocking him, saying, if you are a king, come down. Even one of the criminals that's alongside of him. But one of them, the other criminal, the good thief, sometimes we call him, he recognizes that Jesus is Lord. He recognizes that Jesus is the King. He knows his punishment is just, and he's just asking for God's mercy. And he says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus makes this promise to him, saying, today you'll be with me in paradise. And that's the same promise that Jesus gives to each one of us. Each person who comes with a humble and contrite heart, entrusted to his mercy. That pardon that only the King of all can give. That promise, that everlasting promise of eternal life. Jesus Christ, King of the universe. But it's also an invitation. It's an invitation to be with him now. Not just at the end of our life, but he wants to be with each one of you. He wants to be with you. He wants to be with you that are watching online. He wants to be with you, each and every one of you. He wants to be with you today and tomorrow and the next day, all through your life. He wants you to come and be with him. In fact, Jesus wants to be with his people so much that even after he died and was buried and rose again and ascended into heaven, he has given us this great sacrament, the sacrament of his very self in the Holy Eucharist, where the bread and wine become Jesus' body and blood, soul and divinity. Jesus who is King, Jesus who right now is sitting enthroned in heaven, surrounded by angels and archangels, the 4 living creatures, the 24 elders, and countless saints that are all praising him. And that same King of everything, King of the universe, is coming to us here at St. Peter's tonight in this Mass. He's coming to you in the sacrament of the Eucharist, in Holy Communion, because he wants to be with you. Not just a general wants to be with his people, not just a general wants to be here at this building hanging out, but he wants to come to each one of you tonight. He wants to come to you and be with you today. In the Catholic Church, we also know that this presence is so real that it subsides even after Mass is over, right? It continues. So even any of those consecrated hosts that are not consumed, as long as they remain in the form of the bread, that is Jesus present. That's why after communion, whatever hosts are not consumed, we'll put them in the gold ciborium and we'll place them in the gold tabernacle behind the altar. This weekend, actually, the parish has a gift that was given to us, handmade by a Carmelite nun, a small veil that will go over that ciborium, just to help us to see and remember the great majesty of the King who is enthroned in the tabernacle, who is reposed there with us. And so the Church also says a very good and holy practice is Eucharistic adoration. Because in that consecrated host, Jesus, King of the universe, is present. We can look on him. We can kneel before him, pray with him. And we're so blessed at this parish to have perpetual adoration. It's just on the other side of the sanctuary. The other side of that wall is our perpetual adoration chapel, where Jesus Christ, King of the universe, can come to you and to be with you any hour of the day, every day of the week for the most part. Open from Sunday at noon until about 4:30, 4:45 on Saturday. Something like 148 hours a week that he's present to you, waiting for you to come and be with him. Waiting for you to come and be with him. Now, there is a logistical part of this, is that to have perpetual adoration, we need people committed to adore him, committed to those 148 hours. And so we have some open slots, and so I'd ask you to prayerfully consider taking an hour of adoration during the week. It would be a certain hour on a certain day that you just come each week. We try to have 2 signed up for every slot, because then that way, in case somebody's gone, we have a backup, and Jesus never has to be left alone. Right? Jesus never has to be left alone. And so for those of you who are committed adorers, I thank you and hope that you are getting closer and closer to Jesus when you spend that hour with him. Maybe if you haven't signed up yet, just prayerfully consider that. Prayerfully consider signing up to spend some time with Jesus, the King who wants to be with you. Now, of course, this isn't about just checking off the boxes and saying, okay, we got 296 people signed up, we're good for the rest of the year. We don't have to worry about this anymore. No, this is actually an invitation from Jesus himself to you to spend more time with him, to grow in deeper communion with him, in deeper union. Devotion to him in the sacrament of the Eucharist, receiving him at Mass, but also adoring him in the chapel, adoring him in Eucharistic adoration. He wants to draw you closer to himself. So it's an invitation to come closer to him. If you've never been to the Adoration Chapel, we're having the open house, so come and see. There'll be people there to answer questions. In fact, after we process out, I am going to go directly back there. So if you want to talk to me, that's where you can find me. Or if you have questions, I'd be more than willing to answer anything you might want to know about the chapel. And that place where you can draw closer to him. That place where he wants to strengthen you for whatever he's asking you to do, whatever that mission is. So then as you grow closer to Jesus through receiving communion and adoring him in the monstrance, now you're able to go out and do whatever he's asking you, whatever that mission is that the King is sending you. Maybe it's just to minister to your own children as you raise them, or caring for your elderly parents. Maybe it's just to be a witness to your classmates, to your coworkers, those people you meet. Or when you're out serving the poor at a homeless shelter, or working with women at one of our local life care centers to support life. Whatever it is, big or small, that Jesus is asking you to do, he's going to give you everything that you need and then more through communion and through adoration. So we're inviting you to come closer to him. Be drawn closer to Jesus through the sacrament of the Eucharist. He wants to be with you today, each day, every day, so that at the end of our lives, when we turn to him in those last hours, we can have hope and trust in his mercy and love, a hope that we'll hear from him to say, "Today you will be with me in paradise."